Welcome to F for Forensics, the podcast where we dive deep into the bits and bytes of the digital world. I'm your host, and today we are back with another exciting deep dive. Get ready to unpack one of the most fundamental, yet incredibly powerful techniques in the digital world.
That's right. Today's deep dive is all about F is for Fragments in Time, building forensic timelines. We're going to explore how those tiny, seemingly insignificant digital timestamps, the ones scattered across systems, can transform into the definitive, often irrefutable narrative of what really happened during a digital incident.
Okay, let's unpack this because, in the digital world, we're constantly leaving traces, right? Every single file you create, every website you visit, message you send, app you launch, they all carry these associated timestamps. So think of them like individual breadcrumbs in this enormous sprawling digital forest. But here's the challenge. How do you actually make sense of that digital breadcrumb trail when it's not neatly lined up? When it's scattered across, say, multiple devices, your laptop, your phone, maybe a cloud server running different operating systems, and logged across countless platforms, it can feel less like a trail and more like a chaotic explosion of data points. It seems impossible to see the sequence of events sometime.
Exactly. And that's the core mission in digital forensics, especially when you're dealing with incidents sifting through that immense volume of disparate data. Each individual timestamp, from the millisecond a file's metadata changes, all the way up to a large-scale event log entry showing a system restart, it's just a single, often isolated puzzle piece. So our goal in this deep dive is to show you, our listener, how forensic investigators take these fragmented, sometimes seemingly meaningless pieces and meticulously put them together. The aim is always to reveal a coherent, indisputable, and often astonishingly precise story of events. It's really about transforming that raw, overwhelming data into clear, actionable intelligence that can answer those critical questions.
Right. So by the end of this deep dive, you'll not only understand how those scattered digital artifacts are meticulously turned into a clear, precise sequence of events, but also why mastering this skill isn't just some niche forensic technique. It's actually a vital, foundational capability for anyone trying to truly understand, effectively respond to, or maybe even proactively prevent digital incidents. This is the difference between making, an educated guess about what happened and knowing with confidence what actually transpired. And we promise we're going to keep this entertaining, lively, and fun, all at a moderate pace. So let's jump in. The indispensable power of forensic timelines. All right, let's jump straight into this indispensable power of forensic timelines. So imagine you're faced with a literal mountain of digital evidence after maybe a security breach or some major incident. You've got hard drives from multiple compromised computers. You've got cloud storage data, smartphone backups, server logs from all across the network, maybe even network traffic captures. And it's not just a lot of data.
It's border from completely different sources, involving different users, spanning different points in time, all just jumbled together. The raw evidence, in this state, it can feel truly overwhelming, just a chaotic mess that offers no immediate insight into the actual sequence of events. It's like being handed, millions of Lego bricks from a dozen different sets all mixed in one giant box and being told to build a specific castle without any instructions. You just don't know where to even begin.
That's precisely the problem forensic timelines are designed to solve. They really represent the transformative solution that cuts right through this chaos. So instead of a random collection of events, timelines take those scattered, disparate artifacts and arrange them into a coherent, logical sequence of events. Think of it maybe like a conductor bringing an orchestra of diverse instruments into a harmonious piece. You're not just seeing individual notes, you're hearing the entire symphony. This ordered, chronological presentation allows investigators to see not just what happened, but critically, when it happened in relation to other events. And this provides essential context, allowing us to connect dots that would otherwise just remain isolated. It's the difference between having all the pieces of a puzzle spread out and actually seeing the complete picture finally emerge.
Okay, so what does this all mean for you, the listener, if you're trying to understand what really happened in a digital incident? Beyond just tidying up the data, what are the immediate tangible benefits of this kind of structured chronological approach?
Oh, the strategic advantages are immense, and they impact investigations at basically every level. Firstly, and this is really powerful, timelines are incredibly effective for alibi confirmation or refutation. If a suspect or maybe an employee claims they were offline, or perhaps in a different physical location during a specific incident, a forensic timeline can definitively confirm or disprove that alibi. For instance, consider a case where someone claims they were, say, asleep at home during an incident at 3 a.m. If our timeline shows their work laptop logged into the company network, accessed a specific sensitive document, and then transferred it to an external USB drive, all while connected to an IP address associated with their home Wi-Fi at exactly 3:02 a.m., while that timeline provides undeniable timestamped evidence contradicting their verbal claim, it completely transforms a he said, she said scenario into the data said factual finding. This isn't about accusation. It's about objective, verifiable truth.
Right, and it's not just about disproving claims, is it? This chronological view must also make anomaly detection just glaringly obvious. When you have events laid out chronologically like that, deviations from normal patterns of activity must suddenly stick out like a sore thumb. Imagine a system that typically only sees user logins during standard business hours. Right? If a timeline reveals multiple logins from maybe an unusual geographic location at 2 a.m., followed by a massive data transfer or maybe a series of unusual command executions, well, that's a clear, immediately recognizable anomaly that demands immediate investigation. It's exceedingly difficult to spot that kind of deviation when you're just looking at thousands of individual unsorted log entries. The timeline just makes the pattern, or the lack thereof, visible in a way that's almost impossible to ignore. It flags the out of place very quickly.
Exactly. And another crucial role timelines play is in connecting abstract digital actions to tangible real-world events. I mean, a file being opened on a computer might seem like a simple digital action, right? But when placed in a comprehensive timeline, it can be linked directly to, say, a crucial meeting starting, or a specific user connecting an external hard drive, or even a particular malicious email being received and opened. We can tell you not just that a file was accessed, but that it was accessed by this specific user account at this exact minute after they received a malicious phishing email, and before a system alert was triggered. This contextualization is what transforms that raw data into a compelling narrative, painting a really complete picture of human interaction with digital systems. This provides the why and how behind the what.
This brings us to what I find truly captivating. This concept you sometimes mention, forensic time travel. It sounds like something out of science fiction, but it's clearly a reality for you guys. How often does that precision, down to the millisecond, genuinely make or break a case? Can you give me a sense of just how granular that time travel truly is in practice?
That's a great question, actually, because that precision is fundamental. Forensic timelines allow investigators to effectively time travel through digital events. We can literally step back, often with astonishing precision down to the millisecond, and observe when and how something happened. For instance, in a high-stakes cyber attack, being able to pinpoint the exact millisecond a process launched, maybe a network connection was established, and a malicious file was dropped, that can be the difference between understanding the kill chain and being completely in the dark. Imagine being able to replay the sequence of an advanced cyber attack, seeing each precise step the attacker took, or watching how an internal data breach unfolded moment by digital moment. This unparalleled precision allows us to reconstruct complex scenarios, identify critical junctures, and really understand the causal relationships between actions, revealing intricate details that would otherwise just be lost in the vast sea of data. That ability to bring the past into such sharp, actionable focus is truly what makes timelines indispensable. 2. The diverse landscape of forensic timelines.
Okay, now here's where it gets really interesting and maybe a bit nuanced for our listeners. You might think a timeline is just, a timeline, a simple chronological list of events, but in the world of digital forensics and incident response, or DFIR as it's often called, they actually come in different specialized forms, or flavors, as you sometimes say. It depends on the specific type of data source you're analyzing, right? Each flavor offers unique insights and focuses on different aspects of digital activity, and understanding their distinctions seems key to building a truly comprehensive picture.
That's a perfect way to put it, yeah. Because relying on just one type can definitely give you an incomplete, or sometimes even a misleading story. Let's delve into these critical types of timelines. So first up, we have file system timelines. These are really foundational in digital forensics because they're based directly on the metadata of files and directories stored on a disk. Every file on your computer has associated timestamps. The key timestamps we focus on are the MACB times: modification, access, creation, and change.
Right, so just to clarify for everyone listening, when we talk about MACB times, a file is created when it first comes into existence. That's its sort of digital birth date. Then, it might be modified an hour later, meaning someone edited its contents, maybe added text to a document. It could be accessed 10 minutes after that, meaning someone opened or viewed it without necessarily changing its content. And finally, its metadata could be changed, like it was moved to a different folder, copied somewhere new, or its permissions were altered, even if the content itself wasn't touched. Each of these MACB timestamps tells a distinct part of the file's story, allowing us to reconstruct its life cycle and how users interacted with it.
You've absolutely nailed the basics there. But here's a critical insight many people overlook, and it's a perfect example of a fragment in time that literally goes missing if you're not aware. Those access times. On modern Windows systems particularly, they aren't always reliably updated. This is often due to performance optimizations. By default, Windows typically disables the last access time update on NTFS file systems for performance reasons. So this means a user could open and view a file repeatedly, and its access timestamp might remain unchanged for days, maybe even weeks. This creates a significant blind spot if you're relying solely on it. Understanding these OS-specific behaviors is absolutely vital because what seems like a simple timestamp can have really complex implications.
Fascinating. So you really need to know the quirks of the specific system you're analyzing.
Yeah.
Okay, what's next in our timeline taxonomy then?
Absolutely. Then we move on to log-based timelines. These are drawn from the various system-generated logs that nearly every device, application, and network component maintains. Think of these as the official, often very verbose diaries of a system or network. They record events as they happen, often with extremely high fidelity.
And the sources for these logs are incredibly diverse, right? You've got things like Windows event logs, which record everything from user logins and logouts to system startups and shutdowns, security-relevant events like authentication attempts, even specific application errors. Then there's specific security logs, which might track firewall blocks, intrusion detection alerts, maybe VPN connections. And finally, application logs specific to software like web servers or databases, or even specialized security tools like Sysmin, detailing their own internal activity, database queries, or process executions. That's just an enormous amount of data to sift through.
Exactly. And these logs provide invaluable insights into a system's operation and user behavior. They can reveal precisely when a user logged in or out, if there were any failed login attempts, maybe indicating brute force attacks. They show when specific software was installed or updated, if any errors occurred, and even granular details about network connections made to or from the system. For example, a series of failed login attempts, immediately followed by a successful login from an unusual IP address, all within a very narrow time frame that would be immediately flagged on a log-based timeline, often indicating a compromise. They're excellent for establishing external interactions and system-level events. Okay, so beyond the more straightforward file system and traditional log data, we have artifact-based timelines. These go broader, incorporating data from various digital artifacts that might not be simple files or traditional logs, but are incredibly rich in user activity and system configuration information. They really capture the nuances of how a user interacts with a system.
Right, and these sources provide incredibly granular detail on user interaction and intent, meaning a very personal picture of activity. For example, registry hives in Windows systems record just a treasure trove of information. We're talking about specific keys like user assist, which can track pretty much every program launched by a user, including its run count and last execution time, even if the program has since been deleted. Or things like shim cache and am cache, which record execution of executables and their associated metadata, giving us this historical view of what programs were run. And then there's browser data, your history, downloads, cookies, cache, even session restore data that can paint a very vivid picture of web activity, search terms, visited sites, what exactly a user was doing online. Plus application usage data from other sources like prefetch files in Windows showing exactly which programs were run, and critically when giving us a powerful sense of a user's routine or maybe specific tools they might have employed during an incident.
Yeah, the value here is immense. Imagine you're investigating a data leak. A file system timeline might show a document was copied. Okay, a log-based timeline might show a user logged in, also useful. But an artifact-based timeline, pulling from browser history, might show that same user visited a specific file sharing site moments before the copy occurred. And application usage data from prefetch files might show they launched a specific encryption tool right after. These different layers of information combine to build a far more complete picture of intent and action, filling in the crucial why and how that isolated data points just can't provide. This is really where the story truly comes together.
And then we get to what sounds like the pinnacle of timeline analysis, the super timeline. This sounds like the ultimate integration, the all-encompassing view.
It truly is, yeah. The super timeline is the most comprehensive approach because it merges data from all the aforementioned timeline types, file system, log-based, and artifact-based timelines, along with pretty much any other digital evidence sources available, into one unified master chronological view. It's about taking every single timestamp from every available source, normalizing it, that's key, and putting it into one massive sortable list.
Okay, so why is this especially powerful? What does it give you that the individual timelines perhaps can't?
Well, the power of a super timeline really comes from its ability to provide maximum context and enable robust cross-referencing. By correlating data from multiple disparate sources, you can verify activities, you can fill in gaps, and you can reveal connections that isolated timelines would simply miss. For example, you might see a suspicious file creation timestamp from the file system, okay? Then you immediately cross-reference it with a corresponding network connection from a log-based timeline. And then you link it to specific browser activity from an artifact-based timeline, all tied to a single user's account and maybe even a physical location derived from IP geolocation or other logs. This robust integration builds a far more complete, precise, and indisputable narrative of events, revealing complex patterns and causal relationships. It's the difference between seeing a few trees in isolation and truly understanding the entire forest, including, the paths worn by hidden activity. It's the ultimate tool for threat hunting and incident response, really. 3. The toolkit for timeline creation.
Okay, moving from the theoretical understanding to the more practical side of things, let's talk about the toolkit for timeline creation. Building these intricate timelines isn't just about understanding the data, it's also about having the right instruments to efficiently extract, process, and then present it. These tools sound absolutely essential for investigators, because without them, you'd just be drowning in raw data.
Indeed. While the fundamental principles of chronology remain constant, the sheer volume and complexity of modern digital data absolutely necessitate powerful specialized software. These tools automate the, frankly, tedious aspects of data parsing, normalization, and aggregation. This allows the investigator to focus their critical thinking on the analysis and interpretation, rather than spending weeks just on manual data wrangling. They make the impossible possible.
So for our listeners who might be curious about the practical side, what are some of the go-to digital forensic tools in this space? When you're trying to build one of those comprehensive super timelines, what are the powerhouses that forensic professionals really rely on?
Well, for automating super timeline creation, PLASO, which stands for the Plasmodium Analysis Tool, is a true powerhouse. It's open source, its command line, front end, log2 timeline is what we primarily use to ingest and process data from an incredibly vast array of digital sources. It's renowned for its parsing capabilities. It can handle everything from disk images to individual files, registry hives, web histories, email archives, even mobile device backups, just tons of stuff. It then normalizes all these disparate timestamps into a unified format, usually CSV or a database, making it ready for chronological analysis. Think of it as like a universal translator for digital forensic timestamps, bringing everything to a common, understandable language. Another robust tool, this one commercial, is X-Ways Forensics. It's highly regarded in the industry for its in-depth investigation capabilities and comes with solid, integrated, built-in timeline features. It allows investigators to perform detailed file system and artifact analysis directly within the tool, and then visualize the events chronologically with really strong filtering options, making it a very comprehensive all-in-one solution for those deep dives.
Okay, so beyond just the raw automation and parsing, once you have that massive amount of data, visualization and accessibility become critical, right? Especially when you need to collaborate with a team or maybe present findings to stakeholders who might not be forensic experts themselves. What tools excel in making these complex timelines digestible and shareable?
Yeah, that's a great point. For visualizing timelines, enabling collaborative analysis, and sharing findings effectively, TimeSketch is an excellent open source choice. It's a web-based platform, which is great, and it allows multiple analysts to work on the same timeline simultaneously. You can add comments, tag events for significance, apply complex filters to drill down into specific activity, and even create dynamic graphs. This makes complex timelines much easier to navigate, interpret, and crucially explain to teams, legal counsel, or management management. Then, for maybe entry-level investigators or for quicker, more targeted investigations, Autopsy is an excellent tool. It's built on the Sleuth Kit, which is a foundational suite of command line tools for file system analysis, but Autopsy provides a really user-friendly graphical interface with good built-in timeline views. It's fantastic for getting a quick overview, performing initial triage on a suspect drive, and it also offers robust report generation capabilities, making it very accessible for those new to the field while still offering powerful features for rapid analysis.
Now, despite all these incredibly advanced automated solutions you just described, I've heard you emphasize something surprisingly low-tech that still holds enduring, almost irreplaceable value in the right hands, and that's the good old spreadsheet. Why manual when you have all these sophisticated tools at your disposal? What does a simple spreadsheet offer that maybe automation might miss?
You're absolutely right. It might sound counterintuitive in this era of big data and AI, but we really can't underestimate the enduring value of manual methods, specifically the good old spreadsheet. Despite all the advanced automation that tools like Plaso and TimeSketch offer, sometimes a manual build or even just a manual review of a small, critical subset of data in a spreadsheet is invaluable. The why is actually quite profound. A manual approach forces the investigator to scrutinize every single detail and truly engage with the data at a fundamental level.
So it's about the depth of engagement rather than just raw speed.
Precisely. When you're manually entering or carefully sorting data, even if it's just a critical few hundred entries, you're interacting with it on a completely different level. This hands-on process often fosters a much deeper understanding of the data itself. It allows you to spot subtle details or maybe unusual patterns that automated tools, which are designed for efficiency and might filter out what they deem noise, could easily overlook. You might notice minor discrepancies in timestamps that a tool might round off, or identify data points that appear slightly corrupted or, crucially, perhaps intentionally manipulated. It's not about doing everything manually, of course. That would be impossible with large data sets. It's about knowing when to step away from the automation, take a critical subset, and apply that human critical thinking, nuance, and intuition. It's about precision and qualitative insight over sheer quantitative speed. And sometimes those hidden nuances are exactly what breaks the case wide open. 4. Real-world victories, how timelines cracked cases.
Okay, now, here's where it gets really compelling for me, and I hope for you listening. These aren't just abstract concepts or theoretical exercises for forensic analysts. Forensic timelines actually change real lives. This segment is where the theory comes to life, through some compelling case examples, showing how these meticulous reconstructions of events have truly cracked cases wide open, bringing clarity to really complex situations.
Absolutely. The real power of timelines isn't just in their technical complexity, but in their ability to provide that undeniable clarity and irrefutable evidence. They really do act as unbiased witnesses.
Yeah, I recall one particularly challenging case involving a corporate network breach where sensitive intellectual property was exfiltrated. It was a big deal. We had multiple suspects within the organization, and several individuals claimed they were nowhere near the compromised system at the time of the incident. Each provided a seemingly solid alibi, often backed by their colleagues. The initial digital evidence was really fragmented and hard to connect, making it difficult to pinpoint responsibility or even the true timeline of the breach itself. And how did the timeline analysis manage to cut through all that noise and those conflicting statements?
Well, our meticulously constructed timeline analysis provided the undeniable breakthrough. It precisely showed logins from their specific user accounts mere seconds before the suspicious file transfers occurred. For example, we could see the exact moment a particular user account authenticated to the system, followed almost instantaneously, within maybe 3 seconds by the initiation of a large data exfiltration process. This involved a crucial proprietary design document being copied to a removable drive. This wasn't just a file access, it was that clear sequence. Login, file access, then rapid data transfer. This provided undeniable, time-stamped evidence that directly contradicted their claims. The precision of the timeline not only disproved their alibis, but also pointed directly to the source of the malicious activity, leading to a swift resolution of the investigation and recovery efforts. The digital footprint, as they say, spoke louder than any verbal denial or elaborate alibi.
Wow. I actually had a particularly stubborn ransomware investigation not long ago. A client had been hit really hard, their entire network encrypted, but the initial intrusion vector was completely elusive. We'd done initial scans, reviewed basic logs, but despite extensive searching, we just couldn't figure out how the attackers first gained access. It was like trying to find the first domino in a very long, Very destructive chain, and without it, preventing future attacks was basically impossible.
Oof, that sounds like a nightmare scenario. How did the timeline help you trace that first domino? Because that's often the hardest part, finding that initial entry.
Yeah, building a comprehensive super timeline was the absolute breakthrough. We pulled in everything. Email logs, web proxy logs, endpoint security logs, firewall logs, DNS queries, file system activity from affected machines, the works. And what it meticulously revealed was astonishing. The true initial intrusion didn't happen right before the encryption event, as everyone had assumed. It actually happened weeks before. The super timeline traced it all the way back to a specific phishing email click by an employee that, at the time, seemed innocuous and might have been completely overlooked otherwise. The timeline connected that initial click to a malicious attachment download, then to a successful execution of a dropper malware, the subsequent lateral movement within the network as the attackers established persistence, followed by credential harvesting, and then finally, weeks later, the ransomware detonation. It was the complete end-to-end attack chain, laid totally bare. This really highlighted the super timeline's incredible power to reveal those prolonged, stealthy threats that might lie dormant or are slowly expanding their reach. It showed us the entire patient multi-stage attack that had gone unnoticed for an extended period. Without that holistic view, we would have just been stuck speculating.
That's a classic and critical example of how super timelines expose the full scope of an incident. Another powerful scenario where timelines provide undeniable clarity is when you're correlating different types of evidence, especially bridging the digital and the physical. Imagine a situation where you have physical security footage alongside digital logs from a computer system.
That sounds like the ultimate cross-verification. How does that kind of correlation typically play out to provide concrete evidence?
Well, we had a case where correlating CCTV timestamps, which is direct physical evidence of a person's presence and movement with specific computer logins and activity, the digital evidence of their interaction with the system provided undeniable proof of a suspect's involvement. We could literally see an individual on a security camera at precisely 10:15 a.m. walking into a specific office area where a data exfiltration occurred. Simultaneously, the computer timeline for a machine in that very office showed a user login at 10:15 a.m., followed immediately by access to a sensitive shared drive. This incredibly precise coordination of physical presence and digital action created a powerful, cohesive, and frankly, irrefutable narrative. It showed the suspect's presence at the scene and their direct interaction with the system at the exact moment the incident began. It removes pretty much all reasonable doubt, turning two separate pieces of evidence into one compelling, undeniable story that clearly demonstrates both capability and opportunity. Navigating the minefield. Common pitfalls in timeline analysis.
Okay, so despite their incredible power and precision, forensic timelines clearly aren't a magic bullet. They demand meticulous construction and careful interpretation to avoid missteps. There are critical pitfalls that investigators absolutely must navigate, often with extreme caution, to ensure the integrity and, maybe most importantly, the accuracy of their findings. As you often say, it's easy to create a timeline, but much, much harder to create an accurate and reliable one.
You're absolutely right. The devil, as always, is in the details. And a seemingly small error in timestamp handling or interpretation can completely skew the narrative and lead to fundamentally false conclusions. This could potentially implicate innocent parties or, conversely, miss crucial evidence of guilt. One of the most common and dangerous pitfalls, especially when you're dealing with data from multiple devices, is inconsistent system clocks. Different devices can have misaligned internal clocks for all sorts of reasons. Maybe a dead CMOS battery on an older system, manual time changes by a user, or more commonly, just a lack of consistent synchronization with a reliable network time protocol, or NTP, server.
Right. And what's the real consequence of that? If one computer's clock is, say, 5 minutes fast and another's is 2 minutes slow, how does that seemingly minor difference impact the timeline and ultimately the investigation?
Well, it leads to critically skewed event sequences. Events that actually happen simultaneously might appear minutes or even hours apart on your timeline. Or even worse, events that happen after one another could appear completely out of chronological order. For example, you might have an event recorded at 9:00 a.m. local time on a server in London appearing before an event at 4 a.m. local time on a user's laptop in New York that actually happened after the London event simply due to clock differences in time zones. This completely reverses the perceived chain of events.
Wow.
This can fundamentally misrepresent the true chain of events and lead to entirely incorrect conclusions about who did what and when. The absolute necessity here is to normalize all timestamps to a common, universally recognized reference point, typically coordinated universal time, or UTC. This ensures that regardless of where the data originated, every event is placed on a universal, synchronized timeline, making that cross-device analysis accurate and reliable. You convert everything to UTC first for your core analysis, and then you can apply local time offsets for reporting if needed. But the bedrock of reliable analysis always uses UTC. It's not just a suggestion, it's foundational.
Okay, another critical area where timelines can fall short, or maybe mislead, is related to the data itself. Things like incomplete data and over-reliance on single sources. I imagine you simply can't build a full story if you don't have all the necessary pieces.
Indeed. Firstly, missing or inaccessible data sources inevitably lead to incomplete or fragmented narratives. It's simple logic. If a crucial log file was deleted, maybe overwritten, if a hard drive is corrupted beyond recovery, or if a cloud service provider doesn't retain data for long periods, you'll simply have critical gaps in your story. You can't put together a full, accurate picture if key pieces of the puzzle are missing. And adversaries, by the way, often attempt to clear logs or manipulate timestamps specifically to create these very gaps. It's a common form of anti-forensics.
Right. And what about the over-reliance part? How does that manifest as a pitfall?
That's the second and equally dangerous problem. Over-reliance on just one artifact or source can create false assumptions or lead to a biased, incomplete understanding of events. For example, a file system timestamp alone might tell you a file was accessed. Okay, useful, but without correlating it with network logs showing where it was accessed from, or application usage data showing which program accessed it, or even security logs showing if the access triggered an alert, you don't really know who accessed it from where or why. It only gives you one side of the story, and that single perspective can be incredibly misleading, potentially leading to a confident but ultimately incorrect conclusion.
So the solution is essentially to cast a wide net and then verify, verify, verify.
Precisely. We constantly encourage collecting as many relevant data sources as possible, and crucially, cross-verifying findings across multiple sources. If an event appears in a file system timeline, always look for corroborating evidence in system logs, browser history, network traffic captures, or other artifacts. The more independent sources that confirm an event, the higher the confidence you can have in your timeline's accuracy. This holistic, multi-source approach helps to fill in gaps, identify attempts at data manipulation, and build a much more robust and defensible narrative that stands up to scrutiny. And finally, a deceptively simple yet really significant pitfall, especially in global investigations spanning multiple regions, is the time zone trap. Forgetting to accurately account for different time zones can completely derail an analysis and lead to catastrophic misinterpretations.
Well, I can absolutely see how that would cause chaos. An event recorded at 9 a.m. in London could be 4 a.m. in New York on the same day, or potentially even a different day depending on the specific time zones involved. If you don't adjust for that correctly, everything will be completely out of sync, leading to a totally false sequence of events.
Exactly. If you're investigating an incident that spans across multiple geographical locations and you don't consistently note whether timestamps are in coordinated universal time, UTC, or local time, and account for daylight saving changes too, you can easily misinterpret the sequence of events by hours, or sometimes even a full day. This can lead to critical misunderstandings about the timing of an attack, incorrect conclusions about the sequence of malicious actions, or misattributing actions to the wrong person at the wrong time. This reinforces the absolutely critical practice of always converting all raw timestamps to UTC for the core analysis. Only then should you translate them back to specific local time zones for reporting purposes, making it crystal clear which time zone is being presented. This seemingly small detail prevents massive misinterpretations and ensures the fundamental integrity of your forensic findings. Outro.
Well, that wraps up our deep dive into F is for Fragments in Time, building forensic timelines. We've seen how every timestamp, no matter how small or seemingly insignificant, really does hold a part of the digital story, just waiting to be discovered, normalized, and meticulously pieced together. It's a truly fascinating blend of art and science.
And sometimes you'll find it's the seconds, even the milliseconds, between actions that truly break the case open, revealing those critical connections and causal relationships that lead to a complete understanding of what actually occurred.
So after hearing all this today, what does this mean for your digital footprint? Think about it.
Yeah.
How much of your daily life is quietly recorded in fragments of time? every click, every file save, every website visit just waiting to be assembled, telling a story about you that you might not even realize is there. It's definitely a powerful thought to consider in our increasingly digital world. Next time, we're going hands-on with another crucial F. F is for flash storage, evidence in the modern drive. And believe me, it's a game changer in forensics.
Indeed it is. We'll explore the unique challenges presented by solid-state drives, concepts like wear leveling and those tricky trim commands, and why evidence handling is profoundly different in the flash storage era compared to traditional spinning hard drives. The old rules simply don't apply in the same way, and you definitely don't want to miss it.
Make sure you subscribe to F for Forensics so you don't miss that deep dive. And please follow us on social media at F for Forensics for more insights and updates. Stay curious, stay careful. We look forward to diving deep with you again.